Welcome, everybody. We're back from break. I'm very excited. This group of appraisal experts I have here would be considered an appraisal dream team. They can appraise any property type that you can think of in the state of Georgia or anywhere else. I'm blessed to know them and be able to work with them to help train the next generation of appraisers that will be coming through. It's the brain power at this table, minus myself, is extremely powerful. To my right, we have the triple OG, Mr. Oscar Sistrunk. He's the first black MAI in Georgia, long-term professor at Morehouse College. I can't believe I'm sitting between two Morehouse guys. To my left is Clarence Williams. He's a brilliant real estate practitioner, MAI, CCIM, one of the greatest minds in commercial real estate and appraising, and can appraise the largest and most complex property types known to mankind. And to his left, bringing black girl magic and girl power, is Miss Syra Paul. She's an MAI, CCIM. She does right away. She can appraise any property types and extremely brilliant. And to her left is Mr. Andy Shepard. He's a very, very talented, brilliant appraiser. All these folks are extreme thought leaders in the appraisal profession and have the ability to appraise and do any property type. They're excellent writers and communicators, and whenever I need a resource or a question, this is the brain trust that I depend on and have been very thankful to come across in my career. And as I travel the country, I would put this panel here against anybody, anywhere, anytime. So with that being said, I'm going to start with Oscar to my right. And Oscar's from New Jersey and came to Morehouse. I've been knowing Oscar probably, I think, since 2009. We had the opportunity to meet when I was we were both doing some work for Capital City Bank. He's just been tremendous to me. When I started travel a couple years ago, he took over my entrepreneurial class at Best Academy, and he continues to do that work today. And the kids really love him. And you all that were here last week got to see Gordia Ammons and his son Miles, who's an appraiser. They're from Oscar's lineage and tree of appraisers. So he has, I can't tell you how many students that he's taught at Morehouse over the years and how many people he has deployed in the appraisal and real estate industry today. He's supposedly retired, and he does a lot of teaching at the Indian reservation, but he's back at Morehouse. I think he's doing more work now, retired, than he did when he was working. He's also at the forefront of blockchain technology and NFTs and tokenization. He's recently done some work in doing real estate development, utilizing fractional interest with Bitcoin to be able to do that. And these are some of the things that he's teaching and empowering the students with. So with that, Mr. Oscar Sistrunk.
All right, well, thank you very much. Let's see, let me start real quick. Yes, I am from New Jersey. And back when I came, matter of fact, my freshman year is 50 years ago. I can't believe it. So I came to Atlanta 50 years ago from New Jersey to go to Morehouse. And to be honest, it wasn't Morehouse. I tell people I really came for the 2 W's when I came to visit. The weather and the women. Once I saw Spelman, I told my dad, man, sign me up. I don't need nothing else to know about it. But I came here as a freshman and decided I'm not going anywhere. And before I forget, yes, also one of my former students is Mr. Kennedy, who was at Clark, and I taught him also, and he worked for me for a few years out of school before he's moved on. And, one of the things about teaching, and when, I started teaching at Morehouse way back in 1980, so I've been there a long time. And one of the things that that got me over there is my mentor told me the benefits that you get from teaching at a place like Morehouse and Clark is not the check that you get every month, but it's the students, the raw material that you have, that you get to mold, you send them out into the world, and they come back, and you're like, holy cow, this thing did work. And Mr. Kennedy, as a matter of fact, speaks over at Morehouse for us, and he's into this AI stuff that I introduced him to, and he's taken off with it to a whole nother level. So we always have him come back, and he's real. That's what I get paid for. Also, you talk about retiring. If you find your passion and you love what you're doing, you're not working, so there's no need to retire, right? I wake up every day, can't wait to go see the students, can't wait to get involved in what's the latest technology, whether it's crypto, blockchain, real estate. And yes, I am an MAI. I do commercial appraisal work throughout the United States and the Caribbean. And one reason I do that is because I'm a Star Trek guy. So I remember Captain Kirk said one time that there's always a solution, always a solution. So when I got into the appraisal field and got my MAI, I still found it difficult. But one of the options is that I had some attorneys come to me because I was doing right-of-way work, and they mentioned to me that they needed an MAI to go to court to fight the banks, and that most of the MAIs already worked for the banks, so they couldn't use them. So they used me to fight the banks, which is, I'm pretty good with the jury. So we started doing a lot of winning, and eventually the banks came to me and asked me to get on their list, and I said, nah, no thanks, I'm good. And so I really don't do a lot of work for banks on purpose now. One reason, because they turn me down early, and I don't care how long it takes, I get even. It just takes time. And I'll wait. So I do the same thing with Native Americans. Work with a tribe called the Mashantucket Pequot Tribal Nation up in Connecticut. They have a casino called Foxwoods, which is the largest Native American casino and the first Native American casino in the United States. And we just took some students up there, and we need to understand we have a very strong relationship historically with Native Americans. If you ever get a chance to go up there and go through their museum, which is top notch, you'll understand that relationship, and we're trying to foster that. So I'd help. In the 80s, we started the real estate program at Morehouse. And then I came back in 22 to help re-energize it. After I retired the first time in 2015, and then I came back. So I'm back there again. I told them, I don't know when I'm gonna go, man. I like the students that keep me current, because now I'm into ChatGPT, because I gotta figure out how they cheat. The only way I can figure out how they cheat, right, is I gotta know it better than they do. And then I tell them, I'm in the cut. You don't know what my name is. So when you're out there, you don't know who I am, who I'm following. You don't know anything. But just know I'm out there watching whatever you do. But anyway, getting into the appraisal business, what I like to do is help young people, all right, not only learn about the business, but expand, especially the commercial, because it's changing so much, right? As we move towards digitalization, all the physical stuff is dematerializing, from office space to retail, banks. I mean, what are you gonna do with a bank nowadays? Only people in banks are old boomers like me, trying to pull out a check and figure out what is, holy cow, what is that? And you see everything going away. Well, what is happening on the digital side, right? Which is where everything is headed, and even as a commercial appraiser. So I'm using more and more AI, thanks to Mr. Kennedy, in my reports. And in my class, talking to students, matter of fact, we talked about drones and AI in class yesterday.
He was the first person to introduce me to blockchain technology several years ago. After he made $1 gazillion and left me behind, I was really upset.
No, it's still early. It's still early. I started talking about Bitcoin in class in 2014 when it was $68. And we talked about, do you think this is a scam or not? And I tell people now, it's $83,000. If you don't think it's a scam, I mean, even if you put $100 in there, sit there and watch it and begin to learn about it. So
He also liked to tell us about the investment opportunity that he passed up on a movie from one of his classmates. His classmates was making his first movie and asking for a small investment, and he turned him down. Who was that classmate?
Well, this is back in 82, maybe, sometime in the early 80s. And I said, black people don't make movies. What are you talking about? He said, well, no, I'm getting ready to start this movie, and I'm looking for an investor, and, would you be interested? And I told my wife, I said, man, I ain't investing no money with that rascal. I don't know what he's going to do. And his name is Spike Lee. So I tell all my students now that if you got a friend, a classmate, I don't care what you think about it. If he says he's going to invest money, put $100 in that daggone thing. You never know; it's worth it. So wow. Yeah, but he did come speak to my class for a decade since then. Coming every time he comes to Atlanta, he'll speak to my class. But yeah, I made that mistake.
Mr. Clarence Williams is a brilliant appraiser. I can't keep up with him. He's at a super high level, but I'll let Clarence go ahead and talk to you.
How are y'all doing? Can you hear me? Everybody hear me? Great. I was mentioning to a lady when we first started congregating here, I'm technically not an appraiser. I always tell people that. And I'll explain that why, but let me give you my background. I grew up in Columbus, Georgia. The only thing I knew about real estate when I was a kid was that Mr. Lowe, who taught my dad in high school, got a real estate license. He's one of the first people to get a real estate license in Columbus. That's all I knew about real estate. Fast forward 30 years, he managed most of my real estate in Columbus, Georgia. How did I get there? I was ignorant. I just said, ignorant guy. But I got there by learning the simple things that you learn in life. Asking questions, being curious, and talking to people. I went to Morehouse College. I was there at the same time Oscar was there. Knew Spike, didn't know him personally. And I was military. I was ROTC, regular Army officer. And my plan was to do 20 years and go to Harvard Business School afterwards and figure out what I was going to do. So my family got sick. I decided that I would give a consortium scholarship and go to grad school. And I was going to grad school purely for finance, University of Wisconsin. Cold as the devil up there. I found out that the #1 real estate program for institutional investing was at Wisconsin. And they were the only people using computers back then. That was 1984, 85. Okay. That was after we had the big computer that looked like a suitcase. And so I signed up. I found out they were doing more finance than the finance department was doing. I realized what kind of education I had when I did an interview with NZMB. They were rolled into another bank. They were in Charlotte. I went down there for an interview and stayed there for 3 days, and they introduced me to the financial analyst. The analyst was analyzing a property, and this is in '85, and they were taking a whole week to do that analysis. And when I got back to Wisconsin, I told everybody, I said, man, I understand what's going on now. This, what do you mean? I said, they had an analyst doing the same stuff that we would do. They were doing it in a week. We could do it in 2 hours. 2 hours with better accuracy. And so what I began to understand is that I walked into a great thing, which is arbitrage. And I always contributed to, and I'll leave this over there for you, this guy's named James Graskamp. Every real estate program in the nation, including Georgia State's, was based on Wisconsin's. Jim Verner, Terry Grissom, all came out of Wisconsin like me. We call ourselves the Wisconsin Mafia. And that is a true term. And so what you do is, when you leave there, you have this skill set, okay? This skill set, and I'll leave that over there too. Appraising is just one of the things. You leave there able to do anything in commercial real estate. And so what I did when I got to Atlanta, we had a list, and Wisconsin teaches you, there's like 15 ways to make $1 million So when you come back there, you can't complain about not being rich. 15 different ways. They tell you that in the first week. And one of those was using the appraisal industry, okay? Where else can you use insider trading and not go to jail? The institutions have all the work. They have all the resources. We had a guy out of Hawaii, he would invest on the periphery of where the institutions were at. So I didn't go into commercial real estate initially. I went to work for the largest commercial real estate firm in Atlanta at that time, Lane Properties. CBU's USGLs used to be our kids. And so how I got introduced to appraising is interesting. Andy, his firm, Pritchard and Wise, a guy named Hank Wise was there. He's one of the owners. He came to our office. He had to value a property up in Glenwood, office building. He came to our office because one of our clients owned the property, and I gave him all the information because I knew appraisers needed information. And we talked for a while. He came back up. He thanked me for giving him all the information. We used to value the properties internally anyway. And so he told me, he said, hey, why don't you get into appraising? I ain't got time for that. I ain't got time for that. I'm doing what I'm doing. So I also tell this last thing, and I'll be quiet, is that if you do get in this business, no matter what you do, try to do two things. Learn about AI, but I was telling Q this. Q used to do a little work for us. Learn the software tool Python. It's extremely important that you do that. Learn some software. Here's why. When I got to Lane Properties, our management company fees were about $500,000. Okay? We had this thing called an AS400, mid-range computer. It was going out, it was obsolete. I knew that. We were going to networks. I changed over our system from the AS400 to networks so that we can give our clients, which was like Dutch Institutional Holding Company, State Farm, all the big firms, we could give them their financials in their own type of format. Our fees went from $500,000 a year to $2.3 million overnight. Okay? Now, I didn't get a piece of that, but we went to war and I got a piece of that. And then I retired for about a year. But I came back into the business, and I came back by going into Pritchard and Wise with Hank Wise and Jim Pritchard. Andy was just starting at that time, remember? Mm-hmm. And so, long story short, I will say this. The business of real estate and appraising, no matter what you do, is people. Asking questions, comparing and contrasting. This gentleman, Graskamp, he was actually the first data scientist. The stuff that we use, I use it all the time. Very good accuracy. And so I always tell people, those are the things that you want to understand. I value any kind of property because I had the framework to do that. But I also was an investor. Half my income has never come from more than the valuation. But it's a great way to travel, to see what's going on, and to understand what's happening in the country. Last thing I'll tell you is this, and this is one of the mistakes I made. 2007, trust company wanted to invest, SunTrust wanted to invest in something. We told them not to. They were real mad and everything. Went down to Florida, and that was when Barack Obama was running for election. And I had to value a large portfolio of apartments. And I'm like, why are y'all selling these things? Makes no sense. The guy said, we ought to. I said, why? He said, AIG and Bear Stearns need the money. Those were the two main firms that went under in the 2008 collapse. I went up to Hampton, Virginia. I had to value a portfolio up there. Best thing up there is talk radio. They had Bernanke, all the big financial guys talking about the market was going to collapse, 2007. You put those things together, September 2008, the market collapsed. SunTrust didn't make that deal, even though they gave us hell for it, but they never thanked us. So these are things that you learn. These are things that you need to be aware of. I had no clue of what I was getting into. I just got lucky. I've always been a lucky and blessed guy that way. So that's what I want to leave with you. I don't want to take up any more of your time. You have any questions, I'm free. He knows how to reach me. I don't advertise. I never have a business card, but people call me all the time. In the valuation world, I'm what's known as a hired gun.
Oh, okay.
That's it.
Well, thanks, Clarence, and I'm just really grateful that he agreed to come out and speak to us today. He don't do none of that stuff that you just said, but we blessed to have him here and be able to have access. And him mentioning Hank Wise, I forgot that he was at Pritchard Ball and Wise, and so was Oscar at one point when he was working on his master's in MAI at Georgia State. So Andy's got quite a bit of lineage here at the table, and Andy has since taken over the company, and he's hired several young folks that look like us, and he has an extremely strong team and has been doing some really good things in the space, and I'm very grateful and thankful for him. He's also one of our appraisal apprenticeship partners that will be helping us to be able to train and move forward. And next to in between those two is, like I said, Black Girl Magic, Miss Syra Paul. She holds all of the designations that you would ever want. I think SRA, MAI, CCIM. I know she has a master's degree. She's just absolutely brilliant. And, you know, I'm not complaining that it takes her 3 weeks to return my phone call because she's extremely busy. But I am very thankful and grateful that she is here with us today. Syra?
Okay. It seemed like you had it for me. Afternoon, everyone. My name is Syra Paul. I've been in the industry for, I'm not going to date myself, but over 20 years. Started in college. In my last year of college, I got introduced from a physics professor. He had a friend that owned a real estate company, and they needed someone who was good at math. And my degree in undergrad was mathematics. So I interviewed for that job, and that's how I heard about appraising. I knew about real estate, but never heard about appraisals and, you know, that whole arena. And so that's where I got started in the Virgin Islands. That's where I'm from. And then I moved to Georgia to study appraising and go get my graduate degree. So I attended Georgia State, where I got a master's in math. And at the time, I was also doing my appraisals license and started a business just doing appraisals. Initially started in residential, and then gradually got into commercial over the years, probably about 5 years into being in Georgia. When I initially started, though, I did not start in residential. I started in doing anything. The firm we worked at appraised all types of properties, so that was my background when I eventually moved to Georgia and actually got licensed. Right now, I currently do appraising mainly for the government. I do mainly appraisals for eminent domain, which is where the government has the right to acquire private property for public use. So that's where I specialize in right now for the last 15 plus years, just about. As he said, I do hold the MAI designation and the SRA designation, which is for residential. And I do have a CCIM, which is the commercial investment side of real estate, not just for appraisers, but anyone in real estate, property managers, developers, investors. Yeah, that's pretty much what I do. What else I need to share?
Talk about your right-of-way work.
Say what?
Talk about your right-of-way work.
Oh, right away. Yeah, so like I said, with eminent domain, right away is acquisition. Like you see a lot of road projects. In fact, there's one right here down the road. They will hire an appraiser to come out and value the property, so that way they can fairly compensate the property owners for acquisition of their property. In this space, it's not much of us. I'm probably one of a couple of females that do appraising for eminent domain. Of color, even fewer, maybe one of two. So it's a space to get into. I do like it. I like the challenge. I like the diversity of it. It's not restricted to just work for banks or properties itself. We do a lot of land appraisals. It's very land intensive. And what else can I say? It's just a good mixture of of real estate and understand the market, you get a good feel of what is to come as far as development before it happens. Like our firm I work with, we handled the project for the Georgia 400, revamping of that whole development. So we did majority of those appraisals for that project to take place. A lot of times we do these projects and it's 10 years before you actually see it come to life. So like you see some construction happening at, say, Boulder Crest Road. I worked on that project probably 6 years ago, and now construction has started within the last year. So you actually see that 3D model come to life years later, but we knew it was coming, 5-6 years ago.
So to expand a little bit about what the right-of-way is, when they expand the highways and bridges, and they have to take multiple parcels in order to expand the highway, they get what's called a right-of-way appraisal, and so
Correct.
they usually come in bulks, and you have to value the before and after effect if they have to take the property, and so it's usually multiple parcels involved, and CIRA works on those at a very high level. So just imagine if they're coming down Peachtree and they're widening the street and they have to take so much of your front yard. They can't just take it, you have to be compensated for it, and she figures out what that determination is. So she's an extremely talented and brilliant appraiser, and I'm thankful that she came out and with us here today. And next to her is Mr. Andy Shepard. Andy does all types of special, different types of appraisals and work, and he's an incredible thought leader. He's developed a course with the paperless office that he teaches just using technology to be able to not use paper. If I write him 2 lines, he will write me back 10 pages. So I try to keep it to 2 words and keep it real simple, then I can only get 2 pages back. But whenever I have a question or need something or thought processes, he is definitely a resource and a go-to, and one of the most brilliant appraisers, as is everybody at this table. Andy?
I'd like to start out by thanking Thaddeus for being a light, for raising people up. Everybody who presented, who donated their time to be here today, thank y'all for being that voice, for inspiring, for helping people move up instead of just being about yourself, which is what most people are. Anytime you can be the light or, align yourself with the light, absolutely do that. I've known Thaddeus for probably 20 years. He and I met in an Appraisal Institute event. I don't know how we got talking about it, but losing weight and cycling. And about 15, 20 years ago, between the both of us, probably 200 pounds lost.
Yeah.
Getting kept off, even though I'm still a big boy. So, I mean, he's just that kind of guy. Definitely align yourself with him. Hang on his every word kind of thing. Try to. Been appraising. St. Patrick's Day was 27 years for me. Was a bartender before. And my bar back when I was at Georgia State said, hey, there's this Easy A class that you need an elective. This is Easy A called Appraisal. It's pretty cool. The guy was pretty cool. It's hands-on. Everything up to that point in college was kind of like jumping through hoops. Like you got to have a little bit of history, you got to have a little bit of chemistry, you got to have a little bit of that. None of it really made sense. I didn't want to walk around with a microscope and figure out what the chemistry was going on at that level. Real estate, when I got into that class, it was hands-on. It was out in the field. It was doing, our big project was studying apartments coming into an area that there weren't apartments in before, and it was near the North Springs MARTA station, and the neighbors were concerned about this, that, and the other. So put yourself in the shoes of a planning and zoning department staff member in that role and that job of telling the community, does an apartment complex matter? Does the lights from, there's, overhead lights that light up the whole parking lot, does that really impact value on houses that are nearby? Does the increased traffic from having that densely populated, thing there, does that create a burden on the road system, a burden on the traffic, whatever? So we got to, as kids who had absolutely no knowledge, go through all those steps, all those hoops, and it was a lot of hands-on kind of cool learning that I found. And in that class, I was sitting next to an old former bartender who was working at Pritchett Ball & Wise, who said, I'm leaving to do investment, but really cool group of guys, some gals too. You should interview there. And I picked up the phone and talked to Hank Wise back in the time, and they were in a building that had a 3-story building that had an ice cream parlor in the bottom floor. Ice cream cone was the basement. First floor was vanilla, chocolate, pistachio, whatever the colors were, right? Call him up and he says, hey, our last guy was a bartender. How bad could it be? We'll hire you. Come on over. Come meet with me. Come talk to the people. I'm the pistachio. Click, back when you used to click phones. And I'm like, this guy's out of his mind. I don't know what he's talking about. He's pistachio, what does that mean? I get there, I see what he's talking about. I'm like, this guy's just my kind of nuts. I'm gonna enjoy working here. Nut pun there. But he was just the fearless, just problem solver. Nothing that really bothered him as far as somebody had a major kind of an issue. He would figure it out. Problem solver kind of a person, right? Early on, we were working on trying to understand the factors that have influenced swampland value in the Florida Everglades, because the Park Service had expanded the Everglades and they needed to know how to compensate people for what they had taken, even if it was swampland. And even among swampland, there's pieces of swampland that you can actually do stuff in. There's swampland that's near canals, near roads, near cities, near whatever. We found out through the course of doing that, there are 127 potential things that explain, just by talking to people, what could affect value for swampland. And then we use statistical analysis from a lot of statisticians from Georgia State, database engineers that we incorporated in that project to figure out, okay, here are the 18 factors that anybody's ever really put statistical inference to, that you can say these are the things that impact value. And it's just kind of mind-opening as to how much variety there is. You can be a specialist in something. You can only do airports. You can only do high-rise office buildings. You can only do, whatever, landfills. Or you can be a generalist and work all over the state, all over the country. You do everything. It's not really my jam, but you can certainly do that. I try to be more of a specialist and be really well-versed in what it is that I'm working on. I like to do rock quarries. I like to do subsurface rights and the allocation of air rights, like if you've ever been in downtown where the CNN Center is. That's MARTA below the surface, that's CSX Railroad on the surface, and up to 23 feet. And it also comes with the rights to put what are called footprints, or basically touchdown points is what they call them, where you can build CNN Center. Now, if you've ever been in there when a train goes by, you can realize that, yeah, there's a train running underneath us. But that's just the kind of thing, is separating real estate value. Like this library is worth something. This library is worth something and needs to be appraised for tax purposes. This library needs to be appraised if Georgia Power wants to run a transmission line down the back of the yard, or Colonial Pipeline wants to run a pipeline down there. How much of the value gets affected by a pipeline and the potential for the pipeline ever exploding? How often does the pipeline explode? What kind of peril is there, and what does that relate to in a valuation kind of context? So, the long and short of it is everything needs appraised, no matter if it's the White House, Disneyland, or this library. And you're the tool in the tool belt that can be the person who does that. And it's just kind of mind-blowing that that's the opportunity that's out there for anybody, really.
So Andy is, what I like, I know we're running over, but to be able to get them to give up part of their Saturday, I'm going to take full advantage of it. So he just talked about the CNN Center and appraising those property types in different ways that most people don't even think exist. And each one of them have appraised a unique property type. I'd like for them to talk about one of the most unique property types that they've appraised and enjoyed. And so Andy started, so now we're going to go with you, Siren.
Give me a minute.
Well, minute.
I got to think about that. I did want to say, though, that the appraisal industry as a whole, it's an interesting field because it allows you to keep your pulse on the market. You have the news, that's one thing, but with real estate and valuation, you're constantly looking, doing market research. So you have a good feel of what's going on in the market, how values are projecting, and it gives you insight of how people are reacting to what's happening economically. So what you see in the news today, we're already seeing that reflected in values or how people react to sales and, what they're willing to pay. So I like the fact with appraising you pretty much have a good feel of what was happening in the economy as a whole. Whether you appraise or not, just having that knowledge base, it's insightful just for like living itself. Now to unique property, I'll let you have it.
Actually,
And I'll
I
think
can
about
tie
it.
into exactly what she was saying. And it's unique. If you go to Perimeter Mall, you get off that exit at Ashford Dunwoody, look to your left, there's a building there. It's called the Gold Kiss Building. And it's very unique. It was a DOT taking. Now, Sire works for GDOT, those folks. I work for the other side, the owners. And so GDOT see me, they know what's coming. Well, anyway, this building was unique because the taking was going to basically turn the building's value to about 25%. And it was a year-long battle. I think the attorney, Steve Levy, Ken Levy, still doing DOT? He's the attorney.
No.
Anyway.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, Ken Levy, yeah. Oh, Lord have mercy. We had a good time. But anyway, what happened, it was one of the largest settlements for GDOT. It's like they started out with 15 million. We valued it much more higher than that. They wound up paying the owners $80 million. It changed the way GDOT did stuff. But it goes back to what Syra was saying and what I was saying about how you can use real estate to with insider information. That Boulder Crest area over there, I did that for Flying J. I forgot the name of it. It's a large transportation company. We did that about 5 years ago. So I'm thinking in my mind, gee, this is going to change the dynamics of this area. I don't have to deal with a 5-mile radius of the area. I can go further from that, and I can start understanding where properties that may not have the value now will be increased over time. You see things before they happen. This was the thing I was alluding to in terms of the guy that decided to invest on the periphery of investors. So if you are an investor type person, those are things that you can look at. Go get the DOT records, see where there's sewer lines coming in, see where roads are being expanded. That gives you an idea. So that would probably be the most unique one that I've done because it kind of changed a lot of things in terms of how condemnation compensation is done from the other side of the table, which is the landowner, which is very unique. The only other one was a condemnation case in South Georgia for a church. And that was one where they were saying the property was worth $300,000, but it was a unique situation, and they wound up getting $1.5 million out of that deal. So those are the only ones that I can think of right now, but you do all kinds of different things. You see a lot of different properties, but I always tell you, get in the valuation business. And the best way I heard it say, you can make a lot of money in the appraisal world, but if you can apply what you learn, you can become extremely wealthy.
Oh, that's why I'm up here with the table with all these wealthy people. Hopefully someone will fall off the plate and hit me upside the head. To my right, I want to ask Oscar to talk about the most unique property that he's worked on. And I know that he's done Indian reservation work. He's done colleges, college campuses, hospitals. So just pick out one, Oscar.
I was thinking which one. Okay, let's do universities. I've appraised a couple of HBCUs. Probably one that's the most interesting is St. Augustine University in Raleigh, North Carolina. We appraised their campus and their off-site property that they own. And the only thing why it's so unique, and I've also done Payne College and, of course, Morehouse College. But one of the interesting things about St. Aug, and really all these HBCUs, they have a lot of property that's off campus over the years. And the problem that they have is they don't know how to convert that real estate into income. You know, right? We don't have to sell it. We can land lease it. We can do all kinds of stuff with it. But you could generate a lot of revenue from all that land that they have. Back when I did St. Aug, I think their off-campus stuff was about, came up somewhere around $15 million or so. And it's just sitting out there, vacant land, boarded up houses. I'm saying, why don't we take that and don't have to sell it, but if we convert it into income, you know, you could generate a couple of $1 million a year from that real estate. Not only that, but it changes the neighborhood. Morehouse is in the process of doing that right now. And the key with doing those HBCUs, the campuses are unique, but it's really the off-campus real estate. You know, a lot of HBCUs you see, matter of fact, I might be doing some work for Jackson State, but you see the neighborhoods really are not very vibrant. One of the reasons they're not vibrant is because you've got this big economic engine sitting there and they're not leading the way. They own enough property in the area that they could change that area, but they don't have the in-house talent to kind of understand what that is, and then it's sometimes difficult to get them to see that. But, you know, we tried at St. Aug, it didn't work out. You know, they lost their accreditation, and now they're struggling. But it's sometimes sad to see. But I mean, that's one of the things that I would say.
Yeah, that's a unique opportunity that we have actually been looking at, and it may even be necessary in order to further the HBCU's cause, especially with the recent attack with the Department of Education and the amount of funding. There's going to be need and opportunity to be able to turn those things, and a lot of the opportunity, especially when you're impacting the neighborhood, is to be able to attack it with critical mass. And because they have so much real estate in an impactful area, they have the ability to turn and impact it with critical mass. So with that being said, I am not going to hold this esteemed panel any longer. I'd like to thank you all for showing up and supporting our Outside the Barn series. We will be here next week working or talking about urban agriculture, how to get a farm number, aquaponics, hydroponics, and aeroponics. And so our guests here will be, I think we have guests coming from the Andrew Young Forever Young Foundation and a series of other guests. We'll also be having some, I believe Ms. Keisha Cobb from Farm Fortitude will be here. So I'm really excited about this series. And we've added a fifth element to the series called policy, and we'll be scheduling that soon. Policy is really important and very impactful. One of the policies that we have been championing and working on is the reconsideration of value policy. We did a session last week. Reconsideration of value is the opportunity to dispute when you feel like your property has been undervalued. It was recently rescinded from HUD as part of the PAVE initiative rollback on March 19th. And it is very critical. It was just recently implemented last year. So what it does is it's a process that allows the consumer to be heard, but it also allows the appraiser to be given the opportunity to explain his work objectively without being accused of racism or bias or misgiving in the appraisal process. It's the number one tool, in my opinion, to combat racial discrimination and bias in appraising. If you look at the recent paper done by the FHFA, it's no longer on the website, but it was dated in November 2024. It stated that only 10% of all real estate appraisals utilized market conditions adjustments. So if only 10% was utilizing market condition adjustments, that means 90% was not utilizing market conditions adjustments. And the paper further went on to say that would go a long way to mitigating disparities in property valuation, and I happen to agree. So that's one of the things that policy can influence and have a great impact on the valuation process. So we will be championing that. We will like for you all to reach out to your county, city, state, and federal legislators in order to do that, but you also have the power to do it as well by implementing with your lending institution. If your institution does not offer reconsideration of value, you want to consider an institution that does. So that is the number one tool that we have in order to protect and champion our wealth. It's something that the VA has used for years through the Tidewater process, and the process that was adopted through HUD and PAVE, in my opinion, didn't go far enough. So this is an opportunity to not only reinstate it, but improve it so that it is effective and a great tool to protect wealth. So with that being said, thank you all again for coming out. I appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you next Saturday. Thank you.
See if they have any questions.
Oh, any questions? Yes, sir.
So what would be some sources for the first steps to be becoming an appraiser that you would suggest?
Talk to one of these experts up here.
What was the question?
How to become an appraiser.
How to become an appraiser.
I'll take it. Couple of ways to do it. One is if you are interested in being an appraiser, is go find one and ask if you can kind of like follow them, shadow them, kind of just hang out with them, go to some of the events like the Institute has or some of these other organizations to kind of get into it. And then you go ahead and you can take the class. Now we, state licenses appraisers. Yeah, they've got the MLS has an exam, and I mean, there's a bunch of classes with exams you can take and kind of get into the field. It takes a while in terms of getting that connection and meeting with someone. Now, the
guess I should have
technology
helped
is
with that.
well, the technology is such that you don't need people as much as you used to. So you got to find somebody who's willing to take you under their wing and work with you. If you look at the people up here, three of us basically came out of Pritchard Ball and White shop. And James Pritchard, who kind of helped me at the time, he just used to have, I just go over there and kind of hang out and learn about it. And that's how I kind of got into it. And, Mr. Kennedy was the same way. He was in my class, and, he asked, kind of connected, kind of hung out with me, and decided that was something he wants to do. Students do that now. Like you can come with me, and I'm going to inspect this piece of property. If you want to come on, come on. And when I'm doing that, because I got a lot of people who come to me, if you show up, you're halfway there. A lot of people say, yeah, I want to do it, but they don't come.
We also have the first appraisal apprenticeship program in the country that will be starting by the end of the summer. So come to our website, 10kma.org, and then our new website, 10kblackappraisers.com, should be up and running next week, and we'll have resources and direction. And one of the things is that there's many different classes that are being offered. One of the things is that the appraisal process needs to be modernized. Right now, they're in the process of changing the form. So that's on the residential side, but that's just basically a start. These guys up here, they utilize critical thinking skills. That's the most important thing. And with the data science and the evidence-based, data-driven analysis, one of the things that Clarence mentioned is he doesn't consider himself an appraiser. And the evolution of appraising is not going to be appraising. It's going to be data analyst, because you need to be able to analyze the data in order to be able to make informed decisions. So this new form, the old form was dated 2005. So that just goes to show you how outdated the appraisal process is. And with that, just think about how many phones, Apple's on its 16th phone. They've had 16 phones since the appraisal industry has had a new form. And a new form will be coming out in 2026. It's starting to do some testing in July of this year. So with that being said, a lot of appraisers won't even really know how to use the new form. Even more important for the reconsideration of value, because that process is so fair, but you need a subject matter expert in order to articulate the argument. So that's one of the things that our organization was founded on, to make sure that you get a fair shot in the appraisal industry and what's happening with the report. Because we tend to be underrepresented in valuation, and also underrepresented when it comes to actually getting into the industry. So there's so many opportunities. We'll be here. You can reach out to us as a resource, as probably most of you all have been here because of the outreach that we've been doing in the space. And I'm really excited to be able to push that narrative and help move it forward. And everybody doesn't necessarily have to come and take our courses. We've helped people that haven't, well, our courses haven't even been fully developed yet. So we're in the process of doing that now to finish, to be able to offer. But it's about the experience that you get and who are you able to work under and be able to benefit. And one thing that I will say, over the last week or two, several people have reached out and they've been somewhat experienced. And so they was like, can you help me find an appraiser? And I asked them to submit their resume. And, well, why do you want my resume? Well, I don't know nothing about you. Nobody's just going to recommend you. So you got to be able to tell the story, your work history, your work habit, your work ethic. Show that you have some critical thinking skills. And again, you're asking somebody to take a chance and invest in a significant amount of time in you. What do you bring to the table? Nobody really wants to waste their time. But as you can see, these people up here, if they can help you, but they can't want it more for you than you want it for yourself.
Yeah, I would just say, make sure that that's something that you're really interested in. Have a fine-tooth focus on what it is you really want to work on. If somebody came to me and said they wanted to be a residential appraiser, I would say take a really hard look at AI, at how big data is going to just crush that segment of our industry. Do you really want to go down that? I don't know. I wouldn't really point somebody to that. Second point is, once you do figure it out, be willing to either provide some kind of a work sample or some kind of thoughts material or something more than a resume. Resume is great, it's a foot in the door, but show me that you've used ChatGPT to analyze something. Show me you've seen some property that's been on the market for 5 years and why hasn't it sold. And you could turn yourself into consultant for that property owner and say, what should it really sell for? Are you just overly optimistic about the price? Is there something weird about the property that's causing it to sit on the market for 5 years other than the price is wrong? If you can kind of formulate some, thought into what it is you're wanting to do and show that to an employer, because first several years are an extreme headache for you and it's an extreme net loss for an employer. I mean, it just is. I'm paying, $8-10 grand for somebody to go to classes to evolve themselves. I'm paying office rent, computers, plus their salary. So you've got to have, a humongous investment in yourself to making it happen too. It does pay off in the end for both the employer and the employee. So that's why we suck it up for the first couple of years while we're losing money. But, it just is what it is. And we're one of the few firms in Atlanta who bites off that apple and says we're willing to take on the max number of trainees every year, which is 3. My whole queue is filled up with people in that boat. I've tried to bring on people, trying to train them. And a lot of times they figure out this ain't for me. They figure out, let me transition what I'm learning here into something else like underwriting or bank review or whatever. But at least I can expose them to what the reality of it is, how to do it the right way, how not to cut corners, how to not see through rosy colored lenses, so show somebody that's defensible and allows you to sleep at night.
And one thing I'd like to add is that you can't be afraid to make a mistake. A lot of times people think they're going to come in and be it. You're not going to come in this and be perfect. And make a mistake, and you can't be overly sensitive to the criticism because it's only going to make you better. And I believe that as long as you're not continuously making the same mistake, and nobody is going to be mad. You're supposed to make mistakes. That's the only way you're going to get stronger and get better. But I see people all the time that don't want to show their work, and I can't help you because I don't know what you know. I know what I know, and you regurgitating everything I tell you, is really not helping you to grow.
Yeah, a lot of it's the academy of fake it till you make it. So use those pushbacks to further yourself to do it right the second time, the third time. Don't make the same mistakes over and over again, like I said. Certainly don't send me a report when I got the old report you just did that was bad on this, X, Y, and Z case, and then send me the next report with the same problems. That ain't gonna help.
If you're interested, get with Thaddeus and he'll connect you with me. We'll make you a guinea pig and get you some real world work experience. And even Q, we were talking a little bit earlier, get back with me so you can take that technology stuff to the next level in terms of valuation. So he knows how to get in touch with me. We'll get you some real world experience if you're interested. And it's commercial. And I would suggest you do commercial. I'm glad Andy said that. And we'll see how that works out. And all we ask people to do is, if we teach you something, teach 5 other people something. Okay? So you'll be the guinea pig.
And we had that conversation earlier today.
Now everybody stand
What'd you
up.
expect?
Okay. No, that's okay, because trust me, we can make that work for
That's what it's really
you.
all about. And to what he said, everybody thought I was crazy when I started talking about 10,000 black appraisers. And so for me, I may not see 10,000. I think I will. But it's you all's responsibility to make sure this thing gets to 10,000. So it's really not about me. That's part of the problem with the industry. It's a me, self-serving sort of deal. And it sort of cut itself off by operating from the principle of scarcity. If I help you, then you're going to come back and take my business. My God is abundant, and the more I give, it multiplies. And you got to give it away in order to keep it. So I believe, and as all these people up here believe, because none of us are insular. If you see, they're all interconnected, and they all have the highest designation possible. Maybe if I rub elbows, it'll trickle down to me. But that hasn't been my case. But my inspiration is you all, and you're the reason that we're here, and you're the reason that they're here as well. So they want to help. They just want to have something to help.
Is there any resource or connection that can convert my hours at the county in appraising to get certified journal license?
They're working on different things now. They just had an AQB meeting yesterday that I missed online. So they're looking at alternative experiences to move towards that. But I think it's on a kind of a individual basis right now. But I think you can submit your log to try to see if you can get qualification. And that's something we could talk about and work on. But they are actively working on it. Again, the profession needs to be modernized and updated. And it's going through a great transition right now. So with technology and opportunities and experiences from other fields, those experiences are very relevant, and there's no particular one way to skin a cat or actually get there.
I have a question regarding hospital appraisals as well as environmental sustainability. I have 17 years in healthcare. Also have taken graduate courses in systems engineering and civil engineering courses just because I was interested. And I taught environmental health at a college for 4.5 years. And I'm really interested in leveraging those skills I have in the academy as well as the practical skills within the healthcare profession, and utilizing that opportunity for appraisal and environmental sustainability, particularly in underserved or under-resourced neighborhoods.
Anyone of you experts up
The
there?
hospitals? No.
I would tell you to do this. Find someone who's doing what you want to do, or someone that values medical facilities, things of that nature, and talk with them and ask them those questions. Again, that's just the best way, because it's kind of funny. Your brain won't find you a solution if you don't start asking questions, okay? That's how it works. So I think That's what you should do. Do that research. Sarah didn't tell you a story, but she told this to me. When she first started, she couldn't find any stuff. So she started valuing properties herself, commercials. Am I correct?
Oh, yeah.
And that's how, and that works. I want to do golf courses. I did one myself. I went and talked to the owners. So there may be not just a field in terms of valuation, it may be some things like you're saying on the environmental industry side, which is getting super, super important. People don't understand it. There are a lot of different niches out there. So there is someone out there doing what you want to do. And it's just a matter of going into the woods and finding that person and talking with them.
And establishing a base with the basis of the coursework. Once you get the base of the coursework down, then you can kind of to figure out and pivot, knowing that's where you want to end up. And so again, these are things that we can kind of try to help you to sort of figure it out. I know Oscar's done several hospitals and long-term care facilities, and with the aging population, that is definitely a niche market and opportunities above with assisted living and that sort of deal. So.
And I'll piggyback off of that. There's also some segmentation in firms. A lot of where appraisal jobs or assignments come in from are based on where the need is, right? If it's for a bank for a loan, if it's for construction, if it's for eminent domain, something like that. Like there's different firms who are in different pipelines, if you will. So you may work, like we don't do bank work at all, so we're not going to be that kind of a person who's probably ever going to do a hospital or something like, that's more on the lending side, and the lending side of that being the cause for the appraisal. We're going to be oh no, what happened when this got contaminated? Oh no, what happens when they, built this property 20 feet over the property line? And now they've got this property on somebody's neighboring property, and now they can't use it, and they're having to pay. So all that goes along with that. So different folks do different things, and the source of the appraisal assignment is dictated by a lot of times by that company and what they do. Like a CB Richard Ellis may do more lending than anything else, or Randall Hammond and the company may do more DOT work than anything else they do. So you kind of have to figure out what it is you're going to go with and pick the right firm.
Anybody got any more questions? Well, this would be a good time, Rick, for us to end. Thank you all for this exciting segment. Thank you for everybody that's been on the panel. Thank you for this esteemed panel that we have here. You all have a great weekend, and hopefully you can make it back next week.